to this too spooky version of the Wrong Button podcast.
Too spooky.
The show where we talk most things nerd, a lot of things video games. And in this case, we're going to talk about a horror game that we just beat. You and I just beat Alan Wake.
Are you going to introduce me?
Hi, Mrs. Play.
Okay, you just assume that everyone knows. They know her voice.
They know her voice. I'll figure it out. I'm joined by Mrs. Play. Welcome.
Thank you for having me.
So you and I just finished up Alan Wake. We finished our first.
It's our first horror game.
Is it our first one? No. Well, we did the stream of Perception, the one where
yeah,
you're
but
blind.
this is like our first one, like our first completion.
Yes.
Yeah.
And this one was very narrative driven. I didn't start us out with like a Slender Man or a
Thank you.
Something where it's a lot of that, like the suspense is there and it's very creepy, but there's also like, hi, come to your home. The Slender Man's here.
Yeah.
And stuff like that. So
as long as they don't travel to a place called Bright Falls, I have no reason to fear.
So let's start with that. So Alan Wake, for those of you guys who aren't caught up on the LP yet, which is will have just wrapped as this episode is airing, you play Alan Wake, a writer who is on vacation to kind of recharge,
get his mojo back.
Yeah, he's had a little bit of writer's block, and so you go and your wife takes you to vacation to this lovely little cabin nestled on a lake, and kind of right from the get-go, things begin to get a little weird. I would say, like, once you get off the boat, the story really starts to, like, take off to where you see, like, something's not quite right.
Yeah, there's a tension. Like, these people in this town are, like, right from, like you said, the get-go, like, overly fans of yours. And so that's just a little bit odd. And then you go to like pick up this key to go for the cabin that you mentioned. And it's down like this dark hallway, but it's daylight. I'm like, why are the lights off? And someone tells you like, hey, can't watch out for that darkness. Can't trust it. It's scary. Don't go down there. Like, that's not normal.
Yeah, it was the lady in the beginning who we kind of, in the very beginning, you and I like shrugged her off like, you're a little odd.
Yep.
An
odd
like,
duck for an odd town.
Yeah, and it was one of those things, and it's also like Deer Fest.
Yeah.
Which is I expect that more with like the Midwest, but it was for that. The game took a very Stephen King approach to what was going on, because for most of the game it felt like we had like 2 to 3 like coexisting storylines. So you had like the storyline of Alan Wake, the storyline of the town that was existing, I guess.
Yeah,
like,
Bright Falls.
And then you had the storyline of the people interacting with Alan Wake's storyline. So for instance, like so for instance, Alan Wake, of course, you know, his wife goes missing. You go to the cabin, something's not quite right. His wife goes missing.
She is taken by the darkness.
That's a, and it's a. I thought it was like a beautifully nebulous description of it, because they do call it like inky black. Very much like the idea of like trying to like swim in an ethereal, oppressive place is how he often describes it. But like so for instance, the waitress, who's the huge fan of yours that you meet in the beginning.
Yeah.
She gets touched by the darkness, and you kind of watch how she changes. However, there's a radio show host who is just like, it's a weird night tonight. It feels off when you're listening to him. And then people call in and go like, hey, it is a weird night. I thought I heard gunfire. And he goes, okay, well, that just sounds like it's an odd one. And it like the story happens around him, and he's like, well, that's just weird, but he has no direct interaction. So it almost makes you think, is something else going on?
And that was a theme that continued throughout the game of like, even when Alan dives into the lake to go after his wife, and then the scene immediately cuts to him like waking up from a car accident with like blood coming down his temple. And so you're immediately just thrown into, like, find yourself thinking, like, which of these is real? And even throughout the game, Alan would have what a normal healthy person would probably call a psychotic break. And so he'll go through these episodes, and then it'll like hard cut, and then he's waking up again, or whatever was chasing him suddenly stops. Nope, everything's normal. No dark spirits here, and repeatedly, like, which of these is real? Can we trust what we're seeing? So you find yourself wondering, like, how far is he slipping into madness, or like, is this all real and we should be treating him more seriously?
And I think that played very well into it. The game, like I said, the game even acknowledged that it was like, hey, Stephen King, to the point where the FBI agent who comes to see like what's really going on here, like constantly,
he's calling you everything under the sun.
Oh.
Any author.
All right, Hemi. Honestly, for what he was portrayed as, I was quite surprised by his like literary repertoire of like authors to go through. But the game felt almost, when they did Bright Falls, and I made this comment later on in the playthrough, is for a lot of Stephen King books, like the entire Atlantic Northeast, like I think it's Maine to Vermont,
Haunted.
is just haunted.
Haunted.
And this felt like they were trying to go for that similar motif here, even to the guise of using the tormented author, whose job it is to narrate his entire story. It's similar to what happens in like the Shining.
Haven't seen it.
Yeah, that is.
I'm gonna have to defer to your judgment.
Well, I will have to rectify that because it is a great movie.
Yeah.
But we'll start with that. What did you think? Because I think you were upset by the narration, or you just didn't like Alan Wake.
I didn't like Alan's character.
Okay.
Anyone who has anger issues and then takes it out on their spouse, I'm like, I have very low patience with you. And there were times where Alan was irritable with his writer's block and just like super in his head of like, I can't write anything. Why can't I figure this out? I want to do something different. I want to like not just keep revisiting the same universe with this character. Everything I'm writing sucks. What if I can't write anymore? No one understands me. And his wife is like being like the very picture of innocent, supportive wife, and he's just like taking it out on her. I'm like, you're an author. Use your fucking words, man. Like, this is what you do. So I didn't care for him in that regard. And it's only after something terrible happens, he's like, oh no, Alice. I'm like, classic. So I low-key resented him for that. But he's human, like that he's human, and he's just taking his irritation and frustration with himself out on his spouse, and so I take issue with that.
It was just like for the story starting, because originally, like when the story starts, he's a Dan Brown, a Tom Clancy.
He has a household name. Yeah.
Yeah, but it's the Dan Brown wrote Da Vinci Code, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. It's very much, it feels like that, like but it's like the Castle, where it's like, here's my hard-boiled detective, and then he kills him. And for him to go from that, I'm wondering, because the whole point of his journey is, one, like trying to find and reconcile with his wife, but also, hey, I've killed the thing that's made me famous and what I've written for, and
oh yeah,
and so like
that's, I think, yeah, crucial plot point. Yeah, he killed his golden goose.
Yeah, and then it's the psychological terror of, can I recapture the magic that I had with this guy? And I thought that was really good. I also, the story being narrated as though it was a book. I don't care. I always love that. Like, I loved that in Haunting of Hill House. Anytime it's like, here's a book, and then they narrate part of it as it's the book. I don't know what it is about it, but it's this self-awareness along with like telling you it tells you what's going to happen, but it doesn't tell you like how it's going to happen.
Mm-hmm. There's foreshadowing, and then you're literally, as you're going through the game, you're picking up these pages of your manuscript
Mm-hmm.
that you're writing that you don't remember writing, and if you read the pages, like that's also giving you foreshadowing. So,
or it'll tell you like, hey, this is what the person was doing right before
mm-hmm.
the darkness like takes hold of them.
Mm-hmm.
And the game calls it out several times, and I really enjoyed the fact that the game would revisit you as a narrator. Um, what do you think about reliability of Alan Wake as the narrator? Um, because you earlier were like, okay, the psychotic break.
Mm-hmm.
And obviously Barry, his producer's like,
Mm-hmm.
no, the psychotic
Barry,
break.
his agent, yeah.
His wife,
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to say she's saying he has a psychotic break, but she's very much like, hey, buddy,
No, he's
like,
having a crisis of self for sure, and really struggling through that. I meant like after the psychotic break was like after Alice's disappearance, and he's like running through the woods because some mysterious author is like threatening him, like you'll never get your wife back, and like that's come on, man, that sounds weird. That's unlikely, not impossible, unlikely.
oh, the kidnapper.
Yeah, and as you're just going through, and he just like rolls with it, and instead of like submitting to any like real scrutiny, he's like, I know the truth and no one else is gonna believe me. Like, yeah, you're right, but crazy people say those things, and like you're sounding like you might need some help,
Mm-hmm.
some assistance. um how do I feel about him being it as a reliable narrator? I think voiceover Alan was a reliable narrator, and then first person Alan, as we're playing the game, less reliable.
Okay.
Yeah.
So the part of him that wrote the story
Yeah.
is surprisingly incredibly reliable.
Yeah. Like through like lucid hallucinations as he's writing the manuscript. Like that one's the reliable one.
And so that was like you. That's how I started to feel through it. Like
Mhm.
it would be Alan's piecing together like what's going on. Like I've got to find my wife. I've got to find Alice. And then he would say that in the game, and I was like, that's not as believable as when you pick up a manuscript page and it's like I was spinning in circles, and it's like, oh, okay, here's what's actually going on. And I juxtaposition of the same character or the same person, different characters, one being uh, hardcore like a character that has no idea what's going on, and the other one being the omniscient being. I like that being the same person, but not knowing it. I guess we should get into a little bit of uh, it can't be a horror thing without like monsters. Um,
Beware the tractor.
oh my god, how did you feel about the darkness monsters? Like,
I liked I liked the Darkness Monsters. At least as far as it being, people of the town who are now suddenly like possessed of the darkness, and they're wielding axes and chainsaws at you. Like that's horrifying. And they come at you in groups of like, I mean, it starts like 1, 2, because it's the beginning of the game, but then suddenly like 3 or 4 coming at you, and you're like locking in on 2, and you never see the other 1 or the other 2 until they're like already making a swipe at you, throwing something at you. Um, it provided like an appropriate amount of like jump scareness.
mm-hmm.
And you could always tell it was happening with suspenseful music, but even the wind would pick up, and the lights would move in very unnatural ways through the trees, even like that's not the moon. So you're about to enter like another space where you have to fight and scrimmage through. I liked to an extent, I enjoyed the poltergeist equipment. There would be construction equipment, farming equipment, like beware the bulldozer, beware the crane.
There was a train at one point with the dismantle.
Yeah. So like the it was different, and I liked the like evil possessed machine. It would get like comical to some extent, like as you're like going across a bridge and now the steel's out to get you. I'm like, come on. So like that part was, I don't know, overblown's not even the right word. It was just like ugh. What's the word for ugh?
It felt like it was trying to give you like what in like any other game we play, like, oh, here's the puzzle that's gonna like get you, where it's like, oh, you ran through the room too quickly and you didn't see the trap on the floor. But at no point did the machines were cool, fighting the giant combine harvester.
Yeah.
I really liked when it would be like the guy who we were supposed to rent from. He was like the town mechanic too. He comes out for you at the end, like Smithy or something like that. I can't remember his name, but I liked how he was like, pay half price, and you heard like a twisted version of his voice saying something.
Oh yeah.
He would say. I liked that. Because the sheriff did that. There was a farmer dude who did that. And you got to meet them previously as themselves.
Yeah.
I was like, that is really cool. The poltergeist, to me, you're right. That was in the game. I know my frustration gets a little vocal with that.
It was good until it was like the 50-gallon drums that are just like flying through the air at you. I'm like, they're not going to hold still long enough for me to zap them with the light.
Yeah.
And they're going to keep flying at my fucking head.
And it to me, it felt like, because we made a comment, it was like I was hoarding all my like really good resources. And it was like, oh, this is trying to get me to spend.
Yeah.
And I was, that part I didn't like. And I think for me, coming from like something like Silent Hill, I wish that the darkness would have been a little bit more manifesting of what demon are we dealing with right now? What is...
I mean, yes, but the narrator did warn us, like, there are no clear answers. This is not going to be satisfying. Like, sometimes bad things just happen.
Yeah.
Don't come here by the end of this expecting things to be clear.
Yes. They did. I think
you were warned.
I think just from like a game design, the poltergeists I could have done less with. But like all the bosses, when we fought the one orderly outside, he's like, please remain in your room, and then it does like the like, oh, you don't even sound human anymore.
Yeah.
I was like, I really liked the auditory cues for those.
Agreed.
I also liked that people just knew what the darkness was. So we had are you asking like who or who like?
Yeah, like there was like, did they? Like maybe squinty eyes.
The kidnapper knew. He knew of the
was
darkness.
The kid okay?
Go ahead.
Forgive me, because we played this game over the course of several months in order to get ready for the month of October.
Yeah.
Was the kidnapper a real person?
I don't know.
Okay.
So the kidnapper and Agent Nightingale.
Yeah.
I don't know if they're real people.
Okay.
So everyone else feels like
I don't remember.
Yeah, because the kidnapper is on the boat with us. If in the very beginning, I walk back there and try to talk to him, and he's like, damn tourist or
curmudgeon.
And then we walk forward and we talk to the radio show host.
Yeah, I remember him.
Yeah, and he's like, oh, come along.
Yeah, getting ready for Deer Fest.
Yeah, it'd be great to have you. And he's like, it's trying to be relaxing. He's like, okay. The doctor, I think, was a real person.
Okay.
Because his wife was like, hey, let's go here. This person could help. I've read all of his books. But Nightingale felt placed as like an artificial obstacle. And what?
When you said it, that sounded absolutely correct. But I've never heard what'd you say?
Artificial obstacle?
I've never heard artificial obstacle before.
Oh.
Is that like game developer language?
No, that is me.
Is that literary language?
That is me putting literary language on it.
Okay.
So the other...
No, I liked it.
The point of like...
continue with your analysis.
The kidnapper being there and being like, okay, the kidnapper was around, but he wasn't. He had no personality. So like I'm like I don't
a red herring.
Yeah, I don't think. I think when you met him in the beginning, he hadn't been typed yet, so he had no personality to give you. Everyone else was influenced the character that they were. So that's why I'm like, well, maybe like he wasn't, because he got like later on he had opinions about you're a hack for a writer and the only thing that's good about you is your goddamn editor because you can't write for shit. And you're like, oh,
everyone's worst nightmare.
Yeah, and so that's one of the parts of it where I don't know if he or Agent Nightingale are characters made manifest or if they're people.
Yeah, and Nightingale was like fast and loose, and like for someone who's supposed to be an FBI agent, he was like way too trigger happy and just like lobbing out the. I mean, Alan Wake, very generic name, like easy, not hard to like pronounce, pretty easy to remember, and he's like calling him everything else under the sun, and it's just a disrespect that I wouldn't associate like that. Was a bit more unexpected for this game.
I feel like he was caricature of alcoholic FBI agent who's been in the game too long.
Yeah.
Because when we get to his room, it's it's all the hallmark tellings of alcoholism and
paper cups and a handle
and like cheap whiskey. So yeah, I don't know.
And then he just goes like, and then the darkness came for him, and then he was gone. Like, did we ever see him again? I don't think we did.
Yes.
Did we? I don't remember.
At the very end of the game, you see, I think it's Susie, the waitress, is clutching the lamp, and then you said, "Oh, look in the window behind you. It's the lady."
Yeah.
It was him.
Okay.
So yeah, he's not dead. Or he's dead, but it's not dead.
Yeah. They claimed another one.
Yeah. And now she's going to become like the Lady of Light, who's like can't sleep in the dark, gonna go sleep in a dam full of electricity. But yeah, I don't. Do you think that they were actual people, or?
I liked your theory for the kidnapper of like he didn't have a personality to begin with because Alan hadn't written him one. I'm not sure if Nightingale was ever real.
He also shows up was seemingly out of nowhere.
Yeah, like I don't know.
Because
to go straight to FBI like that's not the order of operations. I've never worked in the police force, but it doesn't seem like the order of operations of like, this guy's wife is missing. Let's immediately involve the FBI. Like that's just odd. And yeah, when it comes to disappearances and murders, it's usually the spouse, the one who reported it, like 40 to 60% of the time, like they're the one that did it. And yet, just the blatant accusations and like you said, caricature. I'm like, I don't know if he was real or if Alan wrote him into existence.
Yeah.
Helps with the story.
It does. It felt like like I said, artificial like inflation of stuff's getting weird and we need somebody
to like add pressure to the plot.
I was gonna say someone with like credibility, because we think like, oh hey, if the FBI or the government's involved, like that means it has to be serious. But I did like that. I also liked that the story, the game took the story very seriously in two regards. One, there was not a lot of like slapstick to it, and it was like, nope, this is happening. And two, the story had to follow logical beginning, middle, and end. And for Alan, it couldn't be like, let me go find my typewriter and be like, and then the sun came up, and then
all was well.
Yeah, he was like, he even calls it out where he's like, if I do that, like the darkness is gonna reject that. He's like, it has to
be believable.
It's got to be so close to the end that we still don't know which way it's gonna go. And the point where it's like, okay, the like to your extent where it's like, oh, the random possessed crane that was blocking us, or Columbine, or the train. It's like, okay, that feels spooky ghost townish. But the uh towards the end when it's like, here's a boat, here's another boat, and they just come falling from the sky. I liked that the story, the darkness, the game was like, no, this is bullshit. Now I just want it to, like, you just need to stop. So I'm going to allow like nonsense to impede you. Um, yeah, I
The
like
depths
that.
of the lake. And just like the number of ships that were falling from the sky. I'm like, this is ridiculous. Like, well, how did you get one of those into this lake?
It's like this little tanker, and then it's like
Yeah.
tugboat, houseboat, tanker, and it's like, wait a minute.
What? Yeah.
But also had like the plane in the woods.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, I forgot about the down plane.
And then the other part I think I really liked. We didn't watch a lot of them, but we did watch the first one all the way through the
TV shows.
The TV shows.
Mm-hmm.
The something night, I can't remember what it was called now, and I feel bad for blanking on it. But where it was just a Twilight Zone.
Mm-hmm.
Here you go, but it all takes place in Bright Falls, and that's where the TV show happened, and it was so much weird stuff that they folded that into the actual story, where the sheriff was like, oh yeah, when weird stuff starts to happen, we just call it like nightfall. And it's like the TV show, yeah, it was filmed here, all that stuff happened around this area, and it's like,
it's a weird little town.
Yeah. Speaking of which, can we divert real quick and go to the sheriff? Like, top 10 best AI character.
Yeah. She could shoot.
She could shoot. I never like, even when she couldn't kill because they weren't shadow people, she could at least shoot and they'd go back. And I was like, oh, hey, you're not. It didn't feel like Uncharted's Ghost Bullets, where you just watch like bullet after bullet hit a body. Like, I was like, oh, or you would break the person and she just turned and that was it.
Yeah. Best assist.
Oh my god.
And she believed you. She added value. Yeah. She wouldn't get lost and stuck somewhere.
She had keys to the bookstore.
Yep.
I like that Alan Wake calls out. He goes, "Why do you have a key to this place?" She's like, "I'm the sheriff. Like, one, in case I have to use the bathroom in like, you know, a weird spot. Two, like, you'd be surprised about like what kind of things you might need to cut across town for."
Mm-hmm.
But I was
yeah, and she reined in Agent Nightingale.
Yeah, she did. I super enjoyed her character. Straight through to the end of the game, where she felt, at no point was I like, great, now I have
someone to babysit.
Yeah, now I have a
Keep
terrible...
her alive.
You don't get it, but god damn it, Ashley. Resident Evil 4 joke.
Okay.
Sorry.
He's experiencing that.
Yeah.
The way he's re-experiencing it in real time.
Yeah, everyone who's played Resident Evil 4 is going to understand that, unless the people are like, they liked Ashley. But I really liked her. What did you think about the people in in the doctor's care, especially the two older guys who were at the coffee shop too?
Yeah, Thor and Odin. Yeah, they were weird. I liked them. It was one of those like, I can't even think of the name of like a drama or a movie, but it's one of those like where everyone thinks they're crazy, but like, no, they're telling the truth. They're telling the truth. It just sounds crazy, but they're telling the truth. Yeah, I feel like I've seen that motif elsewhere, but I enjoyed it. And yeah, like the for being like old rock gods and like really like leaning into it, and even like the manuscripts were like, I think Odin literally did like pluck out his own eye.
Yeah,
like,
he carved out his own eye.
Yeah, I'm like, dude,
for the art, you gotta do it for the art.
I disagree. Like, I'll get tattoos and I'll pierce my ears, but that's the extent of like my body mod for the art, man.
Thank you for throwing man on it. Yeah, that made it.
You're very welcome. Manu. Yeah, the patients were interesting. What did you think? That question for you. How did you enjoy controlling a character that was a little like jump scare frightish, had absolutely zero running stamina, and you had to fight with a flashlight? How was that mechanic for you?
Love the flashlight mechanic.
Mm-hmm.
So for just because a lot of games like to give you the reticle on screen, and it's like there's always that little white circle, and it's like this is where my gun is gonna fire. The fact that the flashlight, if you just had it down at your side, it counted as a reticle. So you could just aim it at the person, and if you were touching the person, you were going to hit them, maybe not always in the same spot, but you were going to hit the person. So I did really enjoy that. The no stamina thing, what? Oh dear God!
I mean, all this happened over like maybe like 2 weeks, 2.5 weeks. That's not really a lot of time to like develop one's stamina. He had shit stamina. For being a New Yorker, someone who's supposed to walk all the time, he does a bad job. You think he'd be better?
His stamina, his stamina was a bit of a bore to me. And I was like, okay, I don't like this. And I also, if you even want to make the thing like, has he really slept in like 3 days? Probably not. Okay, I've run on 3 days worth of like no sleep. You don't run well. That part didn't like the jump scares. Some of them were like okay, that is legitimately creepy, and like the person comes out from beside you, and it got me. So I know, especially early on, until you and I kind of got into the rhythm.
Yeah, because you learned the strategy,
and you would call it out. You'd be like, "You're focusing on the one. Now you're focusing. There's one beside you," and then I die, and I would be like, I didn't even look for him.
I know. You had tunnel vision.
I did. I did that. I didn't have a good situational awareness, head on a swivel. But like mechanically, flashlight A plus. Gunplay, and I know I kind of gushed about the reloading. If you just kept tapping square, he put the bullets in faster, and it's not a Gears of War active reload, but it was a really cool, like I really dope mechanic. Really enjoyed it. As far as really only complaint I have is his damn stamina. And there was no bar. It was just like, and then he had to like hunch over, like he's gonna like
hands on his knees, recovery position.
That's the end. But you know, if he had to be a believable. He's a writer. He does a sedentary job. I don't think the very desk was really big when this game was created. So
no, this game's at least over a decade old.
Yeah, so like he sat a lot, and if he would have been in a lot better shape, I think it would have ruined the immersion more than the trophies popping up.
Yeah, it would have given you more opportunity to get some distance between you and the guys throwing axes at you. Like, just run away from your problems. Like in a lot of instances, like you couldn't.
That's what he kept trying to do, and what his wife was trying to make him not do.
Yep.
Yeah, but no, can't emphasize that enough. The light aiming mechanic was really cool. It kind of had that Uncharted problem towards the end, where you made the joke and you're like, I think you've killed half the town. How many sheriffs do they have? Why are there 8,000 lumberjacks? And like, so it did.
You took out an entire industry.
Yeah, it did kind of. And that's just the nature of games now, where it's like, here, just
hold off these 4 or 5 waves. Yeah, and you're a small rural town and you killed everybody. But then I guess one could make the argument that like those weren't actually the townspeople anymore or ever. They could have just been like, I want to say like possessed shadows, for lack of a better on the spot phrasing.
Early dead people that like died naturally. Anything.
Yeah, or it's just like, nope, this is the form that the darkness decided to take. it's legions of army, like self-made, self-perpetuating, as opposed to like all of them being possessed townspeople. I don't know.
So just going off of your the form the darkness decided to take.
Mm-hmm.
I loved one the creepy old lady was creepy. She's very well done.
Yep.
Two, I liked when the trees would just go down.
Mm-hmm.
And it was like you saw like wind over there, you saw like shifting shadows, but you never saw the darkness.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I loved all those moments.
Early Jurassic Park vibes.
Yeah, early Jurassic Park vibes. When it got to like the end though, and it was just like it was kind of like here's a swirling vortex tornado.
Mm-hmm.
I was a little let down by that part.
Yeah, we got to the climax really fast, and then it was like, and you're done. And it wasn't a great battle saga sequence. And that's what I was anticipating, because there was so much like preamble as we're building up to the crescendo. I'm over here like shrugging. I was expecting a spectacle.
Yeah, I wanted the darkness to be. I wanted the darkness to be more like the sequence where he talks about finding the words like bridges to get him to the island.
Yeah,
because that sequence I was like, and it was like, oh, shine it over here. This creates a telephone. Shine it over here. This creates a porch. I loved that entire sequence.
That was creative. Yeah,
and I kind of wish it would have been like, how do you defeat the darkness and make it a little bit more. I think it could have been a nebulous blob. It could have been Nightmare from Devil May Cry, who literally is just like a blob that absorbs you into darkness, and then you're in a world of darkness, and you're like, oh shit, this is terrifying, except I'm Dante. Like, something along that, but just being like, the lady was creepy.
Yeah.
But I wish that would have been
more.
Yeah, more of a mask where we got to see like more what was beyond
her
mask.
final form.
Yeah.
Her final form, her true form. How'd you feel fighting ravens for someone who normally loves ravens?
I love ravens. When towards the end I figured out if you just held the light on them longer, you didn't have to do each raven separately. It would just, you would hit like the heart of that flock and then they would go away. I wish I'd picked up on that sooner.
Yeah, we died a couple times.
But ravens, overall, ravens were still not as bad as the poltergeists. Like, here's a barrel, here's a brick.
Yeah, the ravens were just there to be a nuisance. Like they did enough damage where you needed to be aware of them. It wasn't just something like you could afford to ignore. But yeah, if you got the timing right, they weren't an issue. Whereas like that fucking 50-gallon drum will like follow you.
Yeah.
And continue to like thrash at your head.
Now, what did you think? Thomas Zane was the person who gave the Lady of the Lake or the Lady of the Light power. What did you think about him writing a page that says Alan Wake's going to come here and pick up this thing from when he was a kid? How does that make you now think about Alan as a character?
It all feels inevitable. I'm trying not to go down like indulge rabbit holes of like, what is free will? Because this is not a philosophy class.
Storytelling is philosophy.
Yeah, and I'm not prepared to lead a discussion on that. I don't know. I don't have thoughts off the head. What thoughts do you have?
So it was kind of like your what is free will? I was like, so did Alan ever exist, or did Alan only exist because he was written up? Now later on in the game Control, you learn that it was Alan Wake and that typewriter, not necessarily that place. That if you would type on that typewriter anywhere, but I think that was his typewriter from home too. So I think it was literally his typewriter in that area.
Mhm.
However, I'm not 100% sure, but I don't know. To me, that was like because Alan wrote the manuscript that said Thomas Zane wrote the page. Thomas Zane wrote the page
Mhm.
to like do that. Now
Okay. It was layers.
it was
right?
layers for
Okay,
the
okay.
MacGuffin.
Yeah. It was a weird MacGuffin. But I liked it. I liked how he defeated her. I just like was like what was it? Yeah. I was unimpressed, but I liked the like here's a light switch and then you shove it in her chest cavity and flip it on. I liked that. I just wish there was more of like epic battleness leading up to that finishing move. The MacGuffin. It was a MacGuffin. Yeah.
I liked the fact that it was established a lot earlier
Mm-hmm.
as something for his wife to like help her because she's terrified of the darkness.
Mm-hmm.
And it wasn't just like, all right, Thomas Zane wrote this page for this thing that he had given his wife, and then it gave us the flashback. The second that the flashback happened the first time, you were like, oh, okay, like congratulations, that's the key to the end of the game. We know how to defeat everything. But I don't know, I enjoyed the like layering of that story being I wrote a character who died, who wrote a page for me.
And no one else remembers this guy.
Yeah, he wrote himself. If that to me felt like, and I would almost want to ask like the writer. I was like, was this your like convenient way of, why no one in the town's picking up on the weird shit? Like, was this like your well, the character wrote all of it out of existence, and so no one would remember except for like 3 people, but those 3 people remembering made it. Uh, Made it like real, almost Freddy Krueger esque. Um, Now I will say one of my favorite parts that was overkill was the defending waves on the concert stage that you read about beforehand. And it's like it looked like rock gods and it was as epic with a fire breathing dragon, and I'm like, that's a weird thing. I haven't seen that yet. And then you get to it. I think it's one of the few times that like the game like truly foreshadowed an event that was like, we're gonna tell you about a major thing you're about to go do.
Yeah. And I liked Barry. He was weird. He was the slapstick comic relief. It was borderline useless. But he believed in you the entire time and was willing to indulge in the ravings of a madman. And well, yeah, he freaked out. He was like, "Yeah, we need to defend ourselves. I'm going to press these controls. I'm going to figure this out, but you defend the area." And then I was expecting him to be one of the bad guys, if I'm being honest.
Oh, to turn at the end?
Yeah, or something, have like an evil menacing grin. It's not actually over yet. But he genuinely seemed like a good supportive guy. I loved towards the end as he was like wrapping himself up with Christmas lights. It was hilarious and I was here for it.
Gets the headlamp and it's like, actually it was the last one. Like there were so many convenient plot point jokes there.
Yeah.
So speaking of him turning evil, I thought the same thing too. Did you notice that he was wearing like an orangish red jacket? And we found the guy earlier who was killed from his best friend. He goes, it feels like a crappy sequel follow-up movie to a great original one where the best friend comes and like, I was like, oh, you're telling us we have to kill Barry. And then he's wearing red the entire time. And I'm like, oh, if that was a red herring joke, I am like way to play the long game, guys. I appreciate it. I also like when he would talk to Cardboard Alan.
Yeah, he was like carrying around Cardboard Alan. Like, don't worry, man, I saved it for you. I'm like, because that's what matters.
Yeah, it was actually one of the collectibles we never found. Were the cardboard pieces of you?
Oh yeah, wait.
We didn't find one of them.
No,
but I went through the trophies and we found that.
Oh, oops.
How
many of the thermoses were there?
Oh, I think we got 73 of them out of 100.
Okay.
Not a pass, but there's also like knock over 10 beer can pyramids. I think going forward for like future horror games in the Halloween frame,
Mhm.
I'll probably turn off notifications just because to me it would be like we'd be like, this is really terrifying. Putting gold trophy.
I was fine with that.
Oh, okay.
No, because there was enough jump scareness and ominous music playing where my rule is like we're not playing like this is not the last thing we do before we go to bed because I'm not doing that. And when we started the game, there was literally a storm going on outside. I'm like, could we not? Could we not start the scary game when there is a storm outside?
I thought you'd like that. I was trying to
No,
set
I
the
didn't.
atmosphere.
I don't need that. I don't need that. That's not the atmosphere that I need. Like, I'm gonna be turning every single fucking light on as I go up the stairs to go to bed. And it was only like my constant reminder of like, our house is safe. Our house has always been safe. Our house is safe. That's a game. And I was able to,
wisteria.
I was able to like talk myself down from my own, like my brain's running away. Yeah. No. That's how you get a flashlight in your eye, spouse. Maglite. I'm like, yeah, why did you do that? Testing.
Testing to see if I'm the darkness.
Yep. Well, it's not the cats. It was never. Yeah. We didn't see any cats or dogs in the game. No, we didn't.
No, there was the one dog. There was
Was
the
there?
dog
I
that
don't
got hurt
remember.
that we had to like the doctor, the vet was treating, but that was it.
Bottom line is, I'm not worried about the cats becoming the darkness. Just you.
They are the darkness.
Yeah.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So, as far as induction into, I'm gonna go with like thriller, scary games. How'd you feel about this one as like a first step into that realm?
I enjoyed it. It wasn't horror, which I'm grateful for. I do jump at jump scares. I kind of enjoy the jump scares. I like being a little bit scared. 7.5 out of 10.
7.5 out of 10.
7.5 out of 10.
So you'd be willing to do more of these in the future?
Yeah. This was good. Just like not when it's raining out and not right before bed.
Yeah, I mean,
like I have rules.
Perfect time is Silent Hill's getting rebooted, and they're getting all new Silent Hills, so we could.
Yeah. And I liked the like, is this real? Is this not real? Like the psychological element was interesting.
I'm glad.
Yeah.
Well, winners, we're going to go ahead and wrap this one here. Let us know what you think. Did you have a favorite part in the video? Did any of the jump scares that got us get you? And if anyone out there has any other good psychological horror games that you would like to see on the channel, I can't say we will get to them right away.
But we appreciate comments and suggestions.
Yeah, we do appreciate comments and suggestions, and I do have a few that are already in the works for Mrs. Play to start really enjoying there. But remember, you're all winners out there.
Keep it weird, and we'll see you guys next time. Thanks for joining.